Hi, and here we are. Slightly different take on this video intro, but if you've already seen my previous video where we unboxed the new Grandstream GCC6020, and if you haven't already seen it, then we're going to be installing this, which is the new Grandstream GCC6020 All-in-One Convergence device. Now, if you haven't already seen the first video, then I would recommend doing that because we go through the specs and unboxing for this. Now, what we're going to be doing in this video is removing this old GCC6011 and replacing it with this, the GCC6020. Now, I'm already at the network cabinet, as you will see, and I've disconnected the devices from the GWN7822P network switch. Apart from that is my NAS and my PC, which are still connected. Now, what I've done is factory reset the network switch, and also my GWN7665 access point has also been factory reset. So we're doing a clean installation here. We're going to be setting up the VLANs and the port profiles and everything once we get the GCC6020 installed. So what we'll do is disconnect the SFP port. Now, this is the uplink port, as you will see here, and it goes into the switch. So it's on a 2.5 gigabit SFP connection at the moment. What I'll be doing is replacing it with a fiber connection. And this purple cable here is also the 2.5 gigabit SFP, and that goes to the WAN connection. So it's uplinked to a 2.5 gigabit fiber ONT box. So we'll disconnect those two now. And also the uplink cable, we'll disconnect that. Carefully remove the two SFP 2.5 gigabit modules. Now, with those, we have the GCC6011 all disconnected with the cables apart from the power, which I'll be disconnecting shortly. So what we'll do is remove the rack studs here. Now, if you don't have rack studs, what I'll do is put an Amazon link to them in the video description, as well as various other links as well for useful information, as I do with all my videos. So feel free to check out the video description as well. So with those rack studs just about removed, so we'll just remove this carefully and then disconnect the power cord. Now, this has an external power supply in the GCC6011. However, with the new GCC6020, this has an internal power supply. So it has the standard 3-pin connector for the power here. So what I'll do now is just disconnect the power lead and then connect the new power lead, ready to connect into the new GCC6020 here. So here we are with the power lead now ready to be plugged into the back of the GCC6020. So what we'll do is get it connected up into the back with the power. And as you can see, we've got some lights. Went to purple, now it's gone to green. So the device is starting up. So what we'll do is now put it into the rack, into the space where we had the GCC6011. Then all we do is just tighten up the rack studs. Now, these are brilliant things. If you haven't got any, I would recommend getting rack studs, as they're so easy to connect and use in your rack cabinet rather than having to undo screws and things all the time. Make it much easier to install things and also remove them and shift things about, which is what I tend to do quite a lot with being a YouTuber. Just get these rack studs connected up and temporarily screwed into place, ready, and then we'll tighten them up fully. So just loosen the top one for that one, which was holding it in place. Now, you don't have to tighten these really tight because they do grip really well. So as you can see, the bottom ones are done, and then we have the top ones. So there we have the GCC6020 in place. As you can see, we've got a purple system LED and also a green power LED. So what we'll do is connect the WAN connection back in, which is this purple cable here. So it goes into the WAN connection on the patch panel. And then what we'll do is connect it to the new 2.5 gigabit PoE plus port. So this doesn't need now an SFP module in there, as it's a 2.5 gigabit port. Now this is port number 5, by the way. So that's that connected. We've got a green light. And then what we'll do is connect the fiber patch cable with the SFP fiber modules here, which I've got. Now, if you want to know what these modules I'm using are and the cables, I'll also put links to those in the video description as well. So what we'll do is remove the rubber cover from the SFP Plus port, put that to one side, and then we'll take the SFP fiber module and plug this into place, lock it in with the arm, and then what we'll do is put the other SFP fiber module into the GWN7822P network switch here, and this is going into port number 28. So we'll just put that module into the slot, lock it in place with the arm, and put the rubber cover to one side. Then what we'll do is take the LC to LC OM3 fiber cable, which I'll put a link for as well in the video description, and this is a 0.5 meter cable. So we'll take the rubber cover out of the SFP Plus module, remove the 2 plastic stoppers from the end of the LC fiber, and these are dust covers, and then insert the SFP fiber module in place into the GCC6020 and then into the LC connection on the GWN7822P fiber SFP module. So we'll just loop it round once just to tidy it up a bit, then insert the fiber module, and there we have the fiber module in place. So now we've got a green light on the SFP Plus port on the GCC6020, and we've also got a green light which hopefully you'll be able to see just underneath there on the switch as well. So now we've got that connected, we should be able to get access to the GCC6020 web interface. So what we'll do is, with my PC connected to the switch already, as you can see, I've already disconnected all the other devices from the switch. So once I've got the VLANs and the port profiles set up, then I'll be reconnecting the devices. Then they should automatically pick up a new IP address in their relevant VLAN. So this cable we don't need now, as it was the old uplink. So now we're using a fiber uplink. So I'll put that to one side out of the way. We'll now go round to my PC in the other room and we'll get the web interface accessed and hopefully get it set up for internet access and so on. So we'll get right to that now. So now that we've connected our PC and also the WAN connection into the GCC6020, we're now at the computer screen here. Now in the address bar I'm typing in http 192.168.80.1. Now Grandstream by default use 192.168.80 IP address range, but once we get into the system I'll be changing it to 192.168.1 range, which is what I prefer, to be honest. So initially, to connect to the device, we're entering http://192.168.80.1 and then press enter. Now the best thing to do is make sure that your PC is connected directly to the GCC6020, so into one of the RJ45 ports on there to initially set it up, and then once you've got it all set up and the switch has been adopted and also your access point, for example, you can then move your other devices, so your PC for example, into the network switch, and it will then sort itself out and give itself a new IP address and so on. So we'll press enter now at the address bar, and this takes us directly, as you can see, to the sign-in page for the GCC6020. So in the username box, we're entering admin, and then in the password box, what you need to do is obtain the factory default password that is supplied on the back of the device, and also the label that you get with the Grandstream devices, and they supply those with all Grandstream devices. So with the password copied, we'll now paste it in and click sign in. Now it's asking us to set a new password, so we'll just do that. So I'll just copy the new password and paste it into the two boxes and click submit. Then it's saying password reset successfully. System will automatically redirect you. And as you can see, it's taking us back to the login page. So what we'll do is just paste in the username and password, and then this will take you into the welcome to GCC6020 setup wizard. So all we need to do is click on the setup wizard button, and of course you can skip this and just set it up yourself manually, but it's just easy to do it on the setup wizard as it is manually, to be honest. So we'll click on setup wizard. Then in the username, it's given us admin, so we'll leave that as it is, and then it's asking us for an email address. So we can just skip that, and then what we can do is for the email sending settings. Now this is for example, firewall alerts and also for multi-factor authentication logins. So what you would do here is set up your SMTP server, your username and password for your email account and so on, and then the sender email address. But for the time being, we'll just skip this, and I'll set it up later when I get the information, and also when I've set up a new email account for the SMTP server. So for the time being, we'll just click on skip. And of course, you could actually just use your existing, for example, Hotmail account, so you could put those details in there, or you can use whichever. For the time being, we'll just click on skip. Then we're into the setup wizard stage 3, and we're going into device name. So here we've got the device name. So what we'll do is leave this as GCC6020. You can of course rename it to anything you want, up to 64 characters. Then we've got the country or region, so it's automatically detected United Kingdom, and also for the time zone we've got Europe or London. So we'll leave that as is, as that's the correct time zone. So what we'll do is go to forwards, so we'll click the blue arrow now so that it saves this information. Now we're setting up the internet settings, so we've got WAN1. By default, WAN1 is for the SFP port, so the SFP 10 gigabit port, so that's SFP plus I should say, and that's port number 6 on the GCC6020. Now I'm using the SFP plus port as an uplink into the network switch, so we'll be skipping the WAN1 connection, and what we'll do is go to WAN2. Now WAN2 is in the gigabit network port 4. So what I've done is actually moved across my internet connection for this video from the 2.5 gigabit port into the 1 gigabit port, so that's port number 4 instead of port number 5. So what I will do is once we get this set up, then I can just change the port number in the WAN connections once we get into the interface. So we'll leave it as WAN2, and then for the port speed we leave that as auto negotiation, which is the normally what you would need to do. If you want to force it, for example, to one of these speeds here, then you could do by selecting the relevant speed. Then in the connection type, now here you would select the information provided by your internet service provider. So my internet service provider does actually use DHCP for their IP address internet connections. However, if you use, for example, a static IP, so if you have a static IP address, then you may need to select that one, or PPPoE. So what you would do is just select the correct one depending on the information that your internet service provider has given you. So we'll leave this as DHCP, and then in the preferred DNS servers you can just leave these blank, and then it should pick up your internet service provider's DNS server IP addresses by default. However, I prefer to use alternative ones, or in this case I'm using open DNS servers. So these are 208.67.222.222, and for the alternative it is again OpenDNS, so it's DNS server 2, 208.67.220.220. Then we scroll down and we're at the bottom now. So what we'll do is click the forward blue arrow button here. For the firewall policy, it's saying about inbound policy. So what we need to do is set it to accept by default. So here, if you see, it will show you accept, which allow access from external clients, deny, reject access from external clients, and return an access denied message, or drop, which quietly drops access requests from external clients. So we'll leave it as the default, which is accept, and then we'll click on the tick button. So if you notice here, it's changed from an arrow to a tick because we're on the final step 5. So we'll click the blue tick button, and then what it's doing now is setting up the GCC6020, and it should then reconnect with the web page in a moment. So if it doesn't, all you can do is hit the refresh browser. So you can just click the arrow to refresh the browser. And as you can see, it's taken us in now to the dashboard, which is grayed out, but we've got some just some adverts here for various steps in the menu. So we'll just close those with the X. Now you'll see we're into the overview, the dashboard, and we've got basic information about the device. So GCC, IP address, so on, and uptime, boot version, part number, so on. We've also got system performance here, so it shows you a graph of the system performance, memory, disk usage, and so on. Then we've got the firewall. So I've already licensed the firewall as I tested this device before this video, hence why it's already saying as licensed in the trial plan. By default, you get a year's worth of firewall service free of charge. So as you can see, it was activated 24th of July 2025. And it expires on the 24th of July 2026. Now, the firewall plans, they're really reasonable. So if you want to just extend it for another year, say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, you can just look at the prices on the Grandstream or your distributor, or where you normally purchase your regional Grandstream equipment from. So they will just provide you with the cost for the firewall service. However, they're not expensive. They work out probably about £30 here in the UK, 30, 40, £50, depending on how many years you want. So for peace of mind, for example, with the security and the comprehensive firewall that they offer, it's certainly worth the money. So moving on, at the top here, we've got various icons. So we've got the GCC6020 is what we're in at the moment. And then we've got the networking module, firewall module, network nodes, where it's you would enter here to connect to your other devices which are being managed by the GCC6020, for example, access points and switches. Then of course you've got the PBX module. So this is disabled by default, but if you want to set up a PBX in this device, you can do as well, and it will manage your voice over IP telephones and your SIP trunks and so on. So they can all be managed in this one GCC6020. So of course that comes free of charge as well for the PBX, and there's no license limit on that, meaning that it never expires. So with this you get 50 devices, so 50 client devices in your PBX, for example, 50 telephones, and you get, I think, 15 or 16 SIP concurrent calls at once. So you can have between 15, I think it's either 15 or 16 calls at the same time on your PBX, and that's with 50 devices. So what we'll do is just go into system settings at the left hand side and just double check the settings. We've got the device name, country, region, UK, time zone, and NTP servers. Now for the NTP servers, it's got them in by default, so we've got 4 in there. So I'll just delete 2 of them. And then for the first one, I like to use 0.uk.pool.ntp.org. And for the second one, I like to use 1.uk.pool.ntp.org. So those are the NTP servers I like to use here in the UK. And then we've got the language, so you can change the language, select any language you wish. And then we've got the LED status indicators on the front of the device. They could be always on, always off, or you can just create a schedule. So here you see you'd create a new schedule, so you can have more than one schedule if you so wish. But I just like to use the LEDs and leave them on all the time, as they're not overly bright, they're not glaring at all. So I find that they're okay sat in my lounge, they're not distracting me at all. So what we'll do on this now, we've just entered the new NTP servers is click save, and then it says save successfully. So we'll go into manager server settings here, so you can set the manager server up. So if you're using, for example, the cloud-based GDMS system, then you would link it with the managed server settings there. So just take a look at security settings. Here we've got the username, and we can have web access, and we can have SSH. So SSH is enabled by default, but I just like to disable it and click save. And then remote access without a password. So you can remote access without a password if you want. That's of course disabled by default, which I would recommend. Then we've got the schedule. So here, these, for example, is where you create also your LED schedules for the device. So for turning off the LEDs at night, should you so wish. Then we've got user management, SMS settings for text notifications and so on. PBX upgrade. Now here is, yes, so it's correct in that I'm saying you can have the maximum number of devices or extensions on your PBX is 50 with this. Now this is 50 licensed already, and the maximum concurrent calls is 16. So you can have 16 concurrent calls and 50 extensions, and this is included in the device license when you purchase it. So if you want to extend it, you can do by purchasing another license with extended extensions and concurrent calls. However, with this device out of the box now, you're getting 50 extensions and 16 calls included in the price of this device, and that never expires. So the license is there forever, for as long as you have the device basically. So we'll move on to maintenance, and here you can go to upgrade. Now I've already checked and it is on the latest version, so the current version is 1.0.7.32 for the GCC6020. And then we can go to backup and restore. So here you can back up the configuration or restore it, and then you can factory reset it here. So you can factory reset the entire system or just the PBX. Then we've got notifications, and then we've got logs and diagnostics. So this is not a comprehensive video of how to set up a complete Grandstream network. It's just an overview of the GCC6020. And if you're familiar with it already, then you'll know that these menus and everything in here looks very similar, or actually the same as the GCC6010 series. So the 6010 and 6011, and it should also look the same on the higher model for this new one, which is the GCC6021. So what I like to do is, because we're using 192.168.80 IP range, as I've said earlier, I prefer to use 192.168.1.1 range. So what we'll do is just go in and change this. So to do this, what you need to do is go into the globe icon at the top, and this takes you into the networking. So all we need to do is go to network settings, and then we go to LAN, and this will take you in to the screen where you have your default LAN. For example, here we've got 192.168.81. You would also add relevant VLANs in here as well, which I'll be doing, and which I've covered in a previous video. So I'm not going to show you how to create VLANs in this video, but if you look on my YouTube channel, you'll find various videos on there how to create VLANs, and also port profiles and VLAN tagging and so on, which is the same procedure as how you do it on this device as the other GCC6010 series. So anyway, to change the default one, all we need to do is go into the square and the pen icon under operation here. Then in the IPv4 address, what we'll do is change this to 192.168.1.1. So this will change the IP address of this GCC6020 to 192.168.1.1. The subnet mask, will leave that as it is, so 255.255.255.0. And then for the DHCP service, we're using this as DHCP server, so that is enabled, as you can see, by default. So we'll leave that as it is, and then the gateway, we'll change it to 192.168.1.1, as this GCC6020 will be the gateway to the internet. So that's why we're changing the gateway IP address as well. Then in the IPv4 address allocation range, we'll be changing this to 192.168.1.11. So I like to start at 11 so that we've got the first 10, so 1 through to 10, as reserved for static IP address clients or devices. And in the end IP address, I also like to set this as 250, so 192.168.1.250 as the end range, so that we've got 4 at the top of the IP address range for, again, static IP address clients. So I like to put my PBX on 254 at the end. So I've got a separate PBX what I'm using at the moment. So I like to set the IP address to 192.168.1.254 for that and give it a static IP address. So that's why I'm setting the client range up to 250. The release time, we can leave that as 120 minutes by default. And then all we need to do is scroll down, again, set the preferred DNS server to 192.168.1.1, which is the IP address again for this GCC6020. So the DNS server is for this GCC6020. So the alternative DNS server, we can leave that as blank because we're only using one. So then what you need to do is, once you've entered that information, click save, and then in a couple of minutes it will then refresh itself and give itself a new IP address where you can access the device. So I'll just pause this video for a couple of minutes while the device restarts itself and gives itself a new IP address, and then we'll be back into the interface. So I think we'll finish this video here, and hope you've liked this overview and showing me connecting it and getting it set up for internet access, and also connecting it to my network so that I've got basic PC access to the internet as well. So what I'll be doing off video is, as I've said, I've covered it in previous videos, so I don't think I need to cover it again. But what I'll be doing is setting up VLANs and port profiles and so on, but I'll do that outside of this video. So hope you've liked this second video, and I should be back again soon with more Grandstream videos and also various other videos on other tech subjects as well. So thanks for watching and see you again soon. Bye for now.